Hey everyone. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I think about what computers are, what I like about them, whether or not I think they're safe, and what I think the future holds for us with AI and computers and people all going along at the same way. So I wanted to just record my thoughts and share them with y'all. So here we go. To me, a computer is any tool that can be used to communicate or express an idea, either through development of software or just communication like a video or audio clip. And I mean, I guess you could consider Alexander Graham Bell's telephone a computer of sorts because it converted sound into electricity and then on the other side converted electricity into sound. So, in some way, there was a processing of something happening there. Today, it's a lot more sophisticated across a lot more devices. So, we have desktops, laptops, phones, cloud servers, cars, microwaves, TVs, game consoles, Fitbits, calculators, all kinds of things are computers nowadays. Um, and the important thing about all of them is that they serve the purpose of taking something complex and making it accessible for everybody to use in a more consumable manner. So that's in a nutshell what I think computers are. I would say that I like computers for lots of reasons. I've liked them ever since I was a kid, ever since I found out what a Nintendo was. I feel like I've always been intrigued by the electronic device that can convey uh, ideas to people. Like, I guess there was always TV shows, and there was always, I guess, not books, but the Commodore 64 or the Atari. But I don't know. I guess my first real interest was whenever the Nintendo came out. It was just really interesting, and I guess my curiosity and my intrigue just grew from there. There were some computers that showed up in my elementary school whenever I was growing up that had a, it wasn't Windows, it was something before Windows. It was like a launcher built on top of DOS, and you could use it to launch particular programs or lock particular programs away that can't be used. And I remember I found a way to get to the admin password for this thing, and I could like set up another page of like my own programs and give myself access to those. So I set up an admin password and I set up an area that I could get to. And I don't think I was doing anything nefarious there. I just didn't want them deleting like my Carmen San Diego or something silly like that. But I remember one day coming into the classroom and a different computer was there, and I couldn't get to the admin password on it. And I thought that was very interesting. They were like, "Don't you hack," you know. But even I'm not sure if it was before or after that. Like those were like color monitors on there. But my mom got from her boss an old monochrome monitor and like an old DOS desktop that she brought home. And I remember being really curious about how that worked. Like, I would try to learn all the DOS commands and like play video games and like type up Word documents. I think we had like a dot matrix printer off to the side. I started doing my homework on that, and I was turning in dot matrix things instead of like writing stuff, and I really liked that part of it. Uh, and then, computers grew more complex. They could do more things. They started being able to host shows, play more interesting video games, and I just kind of grew up alongside of it. I was all gung ho to get a Super Nintendo and like an N64 and GameCube and a Wii. I think I got all the Nintendo consoles. Um, I might I might try playing some Switch games eventually on here. Um, and then my life around computers, I guess just kept on going. Like I went to school for them, I got a job for them, I got a you know very awesome Android cell phone that lets me do lots of things. Uh, I pay bills and do all that stuff on computers now. They're very useful, I'll say. I'm not sure. I remember as a kid, like paying bills, my mom would like take a check and put it in an envelope. And before school, we'd have to drive to an office building and drop it off to pay for uh, electricity or water or some such. And now looking back at it, I'm just real grateful that all I have to do is go to a website and be like, here's my information, please pay my bill now, and it'll just do it. Uh, so yeah, I feel like over my lifetime, I've seen how computers have been more and more helpful, opened up more lines of communication, sometimes even too many lines. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. We've learned how to live with technology, I guess, and I've enjoyed it. I've used Mac and Windows and Linux, and I've used iPad OS, and I've used Android phones, and I think I used Windows 8.1. I guess you could consider that some sort of a pad OS of some sort, some such. But I think I think that there are definitely pros and cons to each one, and there's definitely a use case for users of each one. Like, I feel like the Mac OS operating system and hardware set is a very good combination. Like, with Mac OS, whenever I shut the lid of my laptop and open it back up, everything works the way it's supposed to. And that's not necessarily the case if I have Windows on a laptop or Linux on a laptop. So I feel like the Mac OS is very cohesive in its own right. And then I also feel like all the products that Apple ship with Mac OS are very useful. Like right now, I'm using Keynote. I've used the iMovie and GarageBand, the Weather app, Safari, the store. I feel like a lot of the Mac OS apps are really well tailored for the Mac experience. So I feel like in that right, Mac's got a very good like area or lane. You know, it is expensive. I'm not gonna lie. The Macs cost money. But lately, since they put 16 gigs in as the minimum amount of RAM, I feel like it's a lot better value than it used to be uh, leading up to this year, I guess. Um, Windows Windows is on everything. Like if you buy a computer and it's not a Mac, it's most likely a Windows PC. And it's compatible with everything. If you plug something into a Windows machine, it knows how to use it because Windows is like everybody's first use case whenever it comes to testing their software, their hardware. Like, if it works with Windows, it works with like I think 90% maybe of users. So there's a good incentive for everybody to make things work with Windows, which is really convenient for Windows users. Um, but in its I don't know. I guess I didn't put any weaknesses of Mac. I guess like one of the weaknesses of Mac is that it's only got like a 5 year lifespan and then they kind of give up on their hardware. And I feel like that's a real downer. And then I'm not sure if you noticed, I'm running this thing up in the corner. It's called Scroll Reverser because like if I'm using the trackpad, I like to scroll up and down the way I would on an iPhone. But if I plug in a mouse, I like scrolling up and down the normal way. And on a Mac, you can't do it both ways without going in to switch it. So I have to download this thing to fix it for me. Yeah, I feel like there's just like weird, dumb corners that they're cutting for no good reason. But okay, but I said that because I was also going to say about Windows, uh, the recall, the Microsoft account, just a lot of anti-consumer trends are happening in that product, and I don't like it. um, but yeah, I feel like there's a lot of users who probably don't care, who will not switch what they have. So Windows is good, you know. And then Linux is kind of once your Mac OS expires or you get tired of Windows, Linux is there for kind of an adventurous spirit to go pick up and try to install on things. It works with a lot of hardware. Like it works with ancient hardware. If you found like a old Pentium 3 with like 512 megs of RAM in it or something, you could probably run a Linux distro on it and have a very good like web browsing experience still. Um, so in that way, I think Linux is really cool. Uh, there are things that you'll run into that you'll need some sort of other working device to get to a web browser for so that you can investigate um, things that may happen with it. But once you get enough experience under your belt, Linux is really powerful. It's got a lot of the same, not necessarily as polished software as you would see on Mac or Windows, but it's got a huge repository of open source community built products for all the same things. Like I'm using Keynote. There's like a Libre presentation. There's a Libre Office for all the Microsoft equivalent products. Uh, I believe there's Audacity, which is like GarageBand, and it's got uh, GIMP, which I guess is a lot of these things are cross compatible with all three of them. But it's really nice that they're available for Linux, and you can get a lot of use out of it. So all in all, I would say that I use all three of them and they're all useful, but they're not equal and they're not for every user. Uh, yeah. Computers are safe in the same way that the streets are safe. And I guess that means that if you're street smart, the streets are safe. And if you're computer smart, then computers are safe. So I wanted to take a little bit to talk about some of the dangers of computers to make sure that people feel informed about what it takes to protect themselves with them. Um, because it's important to take that ownership and responsibility on yourself to make sure that you're safe, like in all situations. So uh, as far as computers go, some of the ways that bad actors can get to you is by calling and saying that you have a virus on your computer and that you must download some software to let somebody on to fix it or do things on it. Or somebody says that there was a breach in your bank account and that you need to let them onto your computer with you logged into your bank account so that they can do things in there to try to fix it. These are not the protocols that like corporations would use to try to fix something that's happening for you. So I just wanted to say that um, it's important if any kind of like a targeted ad comes up and says you've got 41 viruses, download this to take care of them. Don't download that. Go to a real antivirus website that you Googled and see what they have to offer if you need to download anything. Um, yeah, just don't accept things that people bring to you as far as computers go. Do some work, some searches, and make sure that you're looking at a real contact number. Like if somebody calls you and tells you that they need to do something, tell them that you need their contact information and what company they're calling from, and then you hang up and go online and make sure that you can reach them back if you went through the website and found the phone number and asked for them or something. That'll make sure that the person that called you is in fact, a part of the place that's telling you, that there's something going on. A lot of times, a corporation would probably mail you first and then tell you to contact them, like a credit card company would say, uh, there's some sort of fraudulent activity, call the number on the back of your card. So like they're saying, don't wait for us to reach out to you in some weird channel. We'll reach out to you, you'll reach out to us because we mailed you specifically and told you to call us. So that's a good verification pattern for those things. Um, Aside from that, yeah, don't download things that pop up on websites. You should be searching out the things that you want to download before you start downloading things. Um, and if this last one's a little bit less computer oriented, but it's still very important. If you're meeting somebody that you met online for the first time or ever, or like I don't know, like there's a certain amount of trust that goes into meeting somebody that you've never actually met before or had anybody that could vouch for them, and it's important to take into account you know that your safety is priority. So if you are going to meet somebody, meet them in public, stay in one place, tell people where you're going to be, and make sure that this person measures up to what you're looking for in a person, before like investing real trust. So those are some of the things to look out for and try to take into best practice whenever you're dealing with computers and communicating with people through them. On the previous slide, we talked about the dangers of third parties trying to attack. But on this slide, it's kind of a split between third parties trying to exploit and our own passions and, I guess, desires to stay with something that is pleasant. So on this one, we're talking about addictive behaviors that can form around particular uh, types of activities that computers make easy to take part in. So, like binge watching on YouTube or Netflix or Twitch, doom scrolling on Reddit or Instagram or Facebook, playing live service games or MMORPGs or even just games that never end, like Tetris or World of Warcraft or Destiny 2, and then chatbots that you can talk to endlessly because it's not a real person on the other side that needs to go to sleep or could tell you, hey, these thoughts that you're having, you should probably go to bed. You may have like better thoughts about stuff in the morning. So this slide is really about describing those behaviors and making making everybody aware that they're out there to induce endorphins in us so that we want to continue using them throughout the day because eyes on them equals money for the provider. So, so yeah, it's something that we need to mediate within ourselves, even though it's profitable and incentivized for companies to pour, this kind of content out for us to consume. Uh, so yeah, I just wanted to describe those for people so that they knew them. Since we talked about addictive behaviors, I thought it would be important to describe ways that at least work for me to avoid addictive behaviors. So, one of those is to maintain real life support networks. I try to keep in touch with my friends. In fact, I think I put together this video based on something one of my best friends, Chris, had said whenever I showed him the first video. He said, hey, some of these things I don't, or what's an LLM? What's this? What's that? And I'm like, oh, maybe I should pull back and talk about more computer like stuff. So, uh, but yeah, maintain a real life support network so that you have people that can give you feedback and help you grow and also just keep you from falling into one of those consumption holes. Uh, Something else that's really worked for me is having a dog. My dog Bargaba, he loves to get walks. He's slowed down recently, but I think that he's kind of old. I've got him on some arthritis, not medication, but like fish sauce and some hyaluronic acid or something to try to keep his joints loose. And lately, he's been wanting to go around the full block again, so I think maybe that's helping. But definitely, like having a dog, walking him frequently, it keeps you away from the computer. So, and also, it's a they're good support networks all by themselves. If you have a chance, take them anywhere they want to go, as often as they want to do it. Most likely, it won't just be in the house, which is nice. Um, Other things to do is to do creative things. I found that usually addiction comes from consumption, or like you find something that you really like and you don't have to pour a lot of your own effort into it for it to be good, and then that just becomes what you do, you and that describes a lot of online addictive behaviors, like even video games that feel hard or need skill to play. Like if you're playing them for thousands of hours, there's still a connection there that probably shouldn't be. And it helps to create things instead of to consume things, like, I guess, videos or programming projects or music or, anything that engages you to have to create something. You get a sense of accomplishment, you get a set of endorphins for it, but it's a reward for work that was done. And I think that that's important to avoid addictive behaviors. Maybe you'll get addicted to accomplishments, and I don't know anybody who does that. They might get addicted to rewards, but that's different. Um, but yeah, and always keep a list of projects so that your default doesn't become a consumption. So yeah, I hope this helps. I thought I would give some definitions around some of the words that I used whenever I put my first video together. I said that I was going to use LLMs to do some experiments, and like I was going to use Olama and Visual Studio and Enchanted and things. And I wanted to pull back and talk about what those things all are before I really get started. And I should point out that this isn't necessarily the true, complex, like detailed, precise way that things happen. This is kind of like my interpretation of it at a 1,000-foot level. That I don't need to know all the nitty gritty details of it because it it serves a purpose, and I there's only so far deep that I want to go. In the same way that, like with C sharp, if I said I want to write something in C sharp, I wouldn't say I need to know what the assembly language would look like underneath the C sharp program. I'd be like, the C sharp is object oriented, and I put together things that move files around, and it compiled and it ran. So I'm sure assembly language came into play somewhere in there. I kind of feel like the same thing whenever it comes to these things. So I'm just going to go through the list and talk about what the terms are and then what the terms mean to me. So with AI is artificial intelligence, and it means to me it's a marketing term that mostly describes LLMs today. So if we talk about what LLMs are large language models, and they are used to predict what the next token is going to be given a set of tokens before it. So a token is like a part of a word. And whenever you give a prompt to an LLM, or I guess whenever you give a prompt to a client, the client sends an API call to the LLM, and then the LLM does some complex algorithms based on a database full of like token weights, and then it gives you back a response. So if you asked it, "Can you hear me now?" it may have weights that say like, "Well, I understand that you're asking uh, if like I understood what, or if I could see what you sent me, and that you want to see a response, but I can't actually hear you." You know, like it's like a prediction of what all those tokens would be if you asked something that doesn't actually have ears, you know, a question about whether it can hear you or not. That might be a really weird example. So, but that's how I usually check to make sure it's like a ping pong. If you know networking, like back whenever you send, if you wanted to know that you could reach another website or another host, you would send it a ping, and it would send you a response like a pong. And depending on the number of milliseconds between those two things, you would know like what the latency was, or if you never got a response, you would know that that host wasn't available. And that's kind of what I do with LLMs, just to make sure that all the plumbing's connected the right way. It's like, "Hey, can you hear me?" And if it responds with something snarky like, "I can't hear you, know that," I'm like, "Cool, well, you are there, good." So yeah, that's what a large language model is. It just takes a list of tokens, puts together what it thinks the response would be for those tokens, and then gives that back. And the way that it communicates is through APIs, which are application programming interfaces. And APIs are everywhere. Like if you're banking and you ask for a list of your transactions, you're calling an API endpoint with a request for your bank account information and like a request string of like get list, you know, something like that. And then a service that provides responses for that API gives you back a list because you're authenticated because you're a particular user. So you get your list of transactions from the bank through an API in a similar way. Whenever you put in a prompt and you send it to an LLM, you're sending the text of the prompt, any kind of file contents that you had, probably something about the folder structure that you're looking at, or I don't know. There's a lot of context that gets sent to the API. The API works as like a contract between clients and the LLM to get a response. Um, so, so yeah, I guess a client in this case is what Visual Studio Code is, or Enchanted is, or one of those kind of programs. Or like if you're dealing with one of those chatbots, the chat client itself is a client, and it's using API calls to reach the LLM service on the other side. So some of those service providers, I said I was going to be working with Olama, and Olama is a host that you can install on your local machine, and you can download LLM models, and then you can make those available through an API that Olama kind of facilitates. Like it opens a port on your system, and if you say like localhost this port slash, you know, Olama API, whatever, it'll start to send you responses from your local Olama instance. Um, so you could chat with your own PC that way. And then the other side of it is the Chat GPT, the Claude, the Gemini, you know, Vertex AI, all the cloud providers giving access to LLMs through APIs that your local client can like reach out to the cloud for. So this, I think, encompasses all of the important items in my mind for AI, at least at a level that I understand. If anybody has any questions and wants to leave a comment under the video, I'd be be happy to look at them and see if I have time to respond as well. And yeah, I don't know. We can always try to help each other understand better what this stuff is. Finally, if I think about where computers and humans are going with the advent of AI and the way it's come on very strong, like Wall Street, I guess, and like investors and like huge corporations are pushing for server farms full of AI agents and APIs that people will charge for, and some people are said to make a lot of money on it. So I wanted to condense down some of the things that I've seen about it and how I think it's going to play into the future. So, at the root of it, AI delivers tokens for money, whereas people deliver responsibility, accountability, self leadership, critical thinking, and empathy, sometimes for money and often for each other. AI is limited in scope, so it's not going to be able to do much on its own, no matter how many iterations of itself it can go over, at least from what I've seen. It goes off the rails very quickly once it hits a context limit, and there's so much context behind everything going on in a corporation or a company. Um, but people can pick up AI tools and figure out how to feed it the context that it needs to produce useful tokens. So there's definitely a place in the tool chain, at least for software development and probably for other fields as well, where AI can come in and help accelerate some parts of the feature, I guess, the feature stream. But there's going to be other ones that people are still very much in need of to make decisions and consider consequences and make sure that security is all right. So I think in that way, combining the two groups or combining AIs with people is going to be a very significant like uplift in just I guess getting code written, but it's going to also lead to a increase in time used to validate things. So it's not like an exact, oh, you can write this code so much faster, so it's going to be done so much faster. It's going to be, oh, you can get this thing to write a lot of the code right much faster, but you're going to have to validate a lot more stuff, which the AI can help you write validation for too. But you've got a lot to think about. So I think in that way, we're going to grow together and find new ways to automate to make things better, faster, which I think is what computers were introduced for in the first place, to simplify complex systems for the benefit of everybody. Um, and I hope that's the way the future goes. Anyway, if you had any thoughts or feedback or wanted a follow up video from me on any particular topic, I'd be happy to put something together. Um, After all, sharing is caring. I hope you all have a good night.